things going on in our lives sometimes, and it feels very harried, very hurried, with all of us rushing about, if that's what you do during the holiday season. But there is so much more to this whole season of life, and is celebrated in so many different traditions. There is so much more than just all of this running around and all of this activity. And that's what we're going to talk about for this entire month of December. We're going to deepen into that concept of L-I-G-H-T. So as Dr. Seuss's Grinch ultimately found out, and the Grinch with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. As he puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore, then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more? So what we're going to be delving into is that little bit more, that little bit more, which is everything. New Thought minister Eric Butterworth, if you've heard of him, fabulous author, minister, wrote, "How very long have we been groping our way through darkness and ignorance, disease, hurting and harming, unknowing and petty, unchristlike. But through all of this, we have ever dreamed of our potential for good. We have held the hope that light would be rekindled within us in this cycle of rebirth of spiritual light. That is the real essence of Christmas." So it is my intention this month, as we come together to discuss L-I-G-H-T. And if you know, I love acronyms, so, you know, living in God's highest truth.
Okay.
L-I-G-H-T. Okay, that's what we are going to be all about this month. And so, there was a kindergarten child, this is a lovely story that I found, who went on vacation with her parents to Europe. And she visited many churches with beautiful stained glass windows. One Sunday after she came back, she went to her Sunday school, and the teacher of the Sunday class asked, "Does anyone know what a saint is?" And she raised her hand all excited, saying, I know. It is someone who the light shines through."
Wow.
This is such a beautiful analogy of what we all are when we deepen into the truth of our essence that has been sung about, that has been spoken of this morning, to deepen into that light that is the truth of our being. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote, "People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out. And when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only if there is a light within." It's that light within. We all have that light within. And that light within comes when we live in God's highest truth, when we really connect with that. That's why the classes are so, you know, it's like, oh, miracles, but it really is just practicing the presence of divinity and allowing it to guide us, because it has a much bigger plan than we could ever think of for ourselves. But do we let that light in? Do we connect with it? Do we even realize that it's present? Because it is present in each and every person. In the science of mind, well, we're going to talk a bit about, first of all, Jesus this month. Because Jesus is one of those mystics that really was the light, who revealed himself as the Father and I are one, as no separation between him and the divine God. And so that is what we learn from, that kind of example, He spread the Christ light. In Science of Mind textbook, there's a fabulous chapter in Finding the Christ Light. It's chapter 22. If you have the textbook, just read that for this whole month, because this whole month is going to be basically on that subject. It's just such an uplifting, beautiful chapter. So I have some of that here to share with you. Finding the Christ, Ernest Holmes shares his ideas about the Christmas story and the life of Jesus. And so it is very, very powerful. And he writes, in studying the life and teachings of Jesus, the most unique character of history, we discover a few simple ideas underlying his philosophy, the embodiment of which enabled him to become the Christ. And if you know that this word Christ actually means anointed one. That's what the word means. There were many people with that title. So Jesus the Christ. So I got a couple of ideas from reading through this chapter. So two are what I really want to discuss this morning. And the first is how this mystic, Jesus, recognized his oneness with God. That was number one. And that's what we'll talk about first. That was the first real truth, his oneness with God. First, fundamental to Jesus' concept of life was his belief in a universal spirit that he called God or the Heavenly Father. In fact, Holmes wrote, Jesus located God in his own soul. So complete was this realization that he was unable to find a place where the being of Jesus began and the being of God left off. Where the being of God began and Jesus ceased to be. This is all in that chapter. Holmes said Jesus understood his own nature. He understood. It was revealed to him, his own nature. And he writes, in my textbook I have written, his nature was his oneness with God. Jesus did not know himself apart from his oneness with God. He was a true mystic. And there have been many others whom we have called mystics, and they have all had the same thing in common. They didn't know where their humanness left off and the divinity of God began. They were in that flow of oneness. Totally and absolutely. There wasn't any, well, I'm having a human experience. There was just God moving through. God moving through each and every one. That's what Jesus, the way shower, the great teacher, the mystic, was here to teach us. And so, that is why he became known as the Christ. Because he didn't know where God started and he left off. It was all in that oneness. And when people looked at him, they saw the light. They just saw light. Light is the energy of God. That's what God is. That's what is the essence of each and every one of us, is that indwelling light. It's there. We just have it covered up. We have it so covered up, but it's there. So we keep clearing away space. That's why we clear away stuff, so we can have more of that good, more of that energy, that God energy flow in through and to us. Because it is our truth. It is, as Harold said, breathe with the intention of recognizing the unconditional love, which is the light of God. So, all this doctrine rose up around Jesus in the early 300s that we know about, and Christianity then was formed. It became a religious philosophy. And then it was conveyed to people that this was the Son of God, the only Son of God. So this is where it's different in Science of Mind, and Holmes makes it quite clear. This is really important. Jesus never thought of himself as different from others. He never did. He located God and the kingdom of heaven within himself. And he told everybody that it is within you also. It is within each and every one of us. This is what he taught. This is what he taught. And he said, if I can do this, in fact, so can you. So can you. And these things and so much more, as he said, you can do these things and so much more. And he taught his disciples how to do this. And they did healings as well. These healings came from the belief that all is possible in divinity, in God. So to think of Jesus as being different from other men is to misunderstand his mission. His mission, what he came here, the purpose of his life, what he came here to teach us. And it was so much. See, he was the master teacher. And if you just read the simplicity of his teachings, you know, you'll get the whole idea of what he was here to teach us. And the beauty of the light that he shared with us. His method was direct, it was dynamic, and it was powerful, yet easy to comprehend. It was not really difficult. He believed in God, in himself, in the power and reality, believing in God within him. He was compelled to believe in himself. When we move to that place where we really believe in ourselves, as Harold said, when we really believe that we are unconditional love, when we can get to that place, and through all the challenges and all the stuff that goes on in life, that's when we really connect in that high vibration of the light. And Holmes writes, so we should never hesitate to say that we know this truth, because we do. For the realization of our unity with God is the truth. The Christ resides in all of us. That is the truth. We simply need a greater realization of this. And then Holmes, he asks and answers a few simple questions. How do we get it? And he says, only by penetrating deeper and yet deeper into our own divine nature. Always going within. Always going within. Outside is just the effects. Always going within. That's where the light is. And by recognizing that individualization of the great I am, we connect, but we go within. We do the work within. He didn't say all that, I said it. Where do we do this? He writes. And he says, there is no place except within to do it. Who is to do it for us? Well, can anyone? No one. No one can do this for us. He writes, others can help us. They can treat for us. And this is both good and helpful. But the evolution of the individual, the unfoldment of the personality, and the enlightenment of the soul, the illumination of the spirit can only come to us to the degree that we let life operate in, through, and as us. And there's a wonderful story to illustrate this point a little further. And there's a point that we are the only ones. The whole point of this is that we are the only ones that can reveal this truth to ourselves. And it's the story of a seeker who had heard there was a council of masters high atop a mountain in a faraway land. And so he desired at the feet of these masters that he sells everything he owns and heads out on this long journey to reach them, the enlightened ones, right? It is the journey filled with hardships, losses, and pain. It takes years and years to get there. And as the years pass, he amassed a group of other people who followed with him to find these great masters. Finally, they reach this precipice, and they reach this location where the masters are. And they walk in and see these robed and hooded masters all sitting around a table, and their hearts leaped with joy. Finally, after this arduous journey, they had arrived. And so they rushed to the table, only to find that the robes were empty. They were shocked, they were dismayed, and they were disheartened. But then they came to the realization that they were to put on the robes and become the masters. So in the context of today's lessons, we are to put on those robes and become the Christs. To become the Christ, to identify with that indwelling light. So Holmes wrote this prayer of knowing.